Welcome back to the Dad Lounge, a safe place where dads can kick back, grab a seat, and just be real. No judgment, no pressure, just honest conversation about the joys, challenges, and everything in between when it comes to fatherhood. Now, today's one I think that every father has wrestled with at some point. It's, am I a good father? And even bigger than that, how do you even measure being a good father, right? So it's not about how many diapers you've changed. If it was, I think I'd have at least a silver medal. But seriously, though, let's go ahead and dive into it. So the thing is, no father wakes up in the morning and wants to be mediocre, right? We want to be a superhero when it comes to our kid. We want to be great. But society, social media, other parents that you see, they they make it seem as though they're so great that we measure ourselves against that all the time. Think about every time you open your phone up. You know, parents are taking their kids on vacation, and that's great. Everyone deserves to go do something like that. Maybe it's a place you've always wanted to go and that you've told your kids that you would go, and you feel as though you don't measure up. Maybe a dad's building like this huge Pinterest level whatever project for their kid, and it looks really, really cool, and it makes you look like you're not doing the same thing for your child, right? That's where the pressure begins to set in, because the truth is there's no universal grading scale for being a father, right? It's not like you get an A for showing up, a B if you mess something up, a C if you burn your grilled cheese. So I got the idea to do this episode when I was online a few days ago, and I saw a father to be asking how would he know that he's ready to be a father? How would he know that he's going to be a good father? And I feel like every soon to be father asks that question when they find out that they're going to be a dad. We all ask ourselves, am I going to be a good father? Am I ready to be a father? We all ask that. The problem there is some people ask it once and then they pay it no more mind. Maybe they don't have any intentions of being in their kid's life. Maybe they don't care if they're a good father because they didn't have a father in their lives and they're using that as an excuse to then not be a good father. But by this father posting it online and making himself vulnerable and putting it out there and trying to get as much feedback as he could from other fathers, I think that's how I know that whoever that was, that internet stranger, is a phenomenal dad, because he's thinking about it. It's weighing heavily on his mind and he wants to be the best dad he can be. So he's trying to get information and ideas from every father, pointers from every dad that he can, so that he can tailor his game plan to how he's going to raise his kid. And I think that's what separates a mediocre dad or a bad dad from a good dad. Now, obviously, with that soon to be father, he's got to tailor his game plan to a baby and a toddler, teenager, so on and so forth. And he can grow with the child. Someone in my situation, and a lot of people who are listening to your situation, I have teenagers, one of which will be 17 in 2 months, another that is 13, and then I have a 4-year-old. We as fathers measure how good we are based on how happy our kids are. Where you start to run into problems is it is far easier to make a 4-year-old happy than it is a 13, 16, 17, 18-year-old. And I know for myself personally, that's where I tend to get caught up, because I can make the 4-year-old as happy as any child in the world, but then I can feel like I failed one of my older children. And then all it takes for me is 1 out of 3 to feel like I've failed in general as a father. Like I'm no good. I've failed altogether. I failed today. When I'm trying to do better, to look at it as, okay, I'm not doing terrible. Maybe I just need to tailor my game plan to this specific child, so to speak. And I got to thinking about why it's easier to raise a toddler, or to make a toddler happy rather, versus a teenager. So my toddler just started preschool. Now, prior to starting preschool, he had about 8 people in his lives, 8 people, 8 or 9 people, maybe, that he loved, that he knew, that he cared for. And when you only have, 8 or 9 people, one person is a huge chunk of that world, his world. So our brains are finite, right? Our brains only get so big. They don't continue to grow, but the mind within is ever expanding. And I've read that. I've read something like that somewhere before. I don't know who to give credit to for it, but they were speaking on the difference between the brain and the mind. So when my 4-year-old was getting ready to go to preschool, prior to that, I was very, very confident and I was very comfortable where I was. And in terms of his life and his world, I knew where I fit in. I knew I was a huge chunk of it, so on and so forth. But he's starting preschool when his current world, his little world inside of his mind has 8 people in it, 9 people in it. That's gonna triple the first day of preschool. So already I'm a smaller part of his life. So already I'm going to run into more problems when it comes to making him happy because as that world gets bigger, it gets more complicated, and he takes on more responsibilities on his own. You know, kids have responsibilities and they feel like they fail themselves if they do something wrong in class, if he has an accident on himself, or maybe he spills something, or maybe he doesn't run as fast as one of his classmates, or maybe he doesn't spell his name as soon as the other kids and he's still tracing his name while the others are writing theirs on their own, things of that nature. So, you know, for the first 4 years of his life, he was in this safety net of the home, and he felt as though he was the center of the world. And he is the center of our world, just like our other 2 children are. But for him, his whole world changes. So it's going to make it harder for me as a father to make him happy, or at least feel like I'm making him happy. And that's already kind of showing a little bit. Then you have, you know, teenagers, they have their own emotions, they start to go through changes in their lives, and it can be hard sometimes when it comes to making them happy. Like I try to find things that they're into, and I feel like for the most part, I do a pretty good job. But it can be difficult sometimes to feel as though you're doing it properly. I know that a lot of other fathers probably feel the same way. Let me know down below how you measure, or let me know on social media down below if you're watching this on YouTube, how you measure if you're being a good father, especially with multiple kids. Do you ever have where all of your kids are happy at the same time? I mean, obviously I do sometimes, but I feel like I must take those for granted because most of the time that I notice it is when they're all not happy. And then I just feel like I'm failing in general because I feel like I should have tried harder at something when, you know, most days I'm giving it all I've got. So if we can't measure being a good father by a checklist, what can we go by? So we can do presence over perfection. Our kids don't need us to be perfect. They need us to be present. We shouldn't feel as though we have to be flawless, even though we do because we're super hard on ourselves. Society in general is super hard on fathers. It makes fathers feel like, you know, we don't amount up to what we should a lot of the times, or at least it does for me. I'm not too proud to admit that. But I think that the first thing that we as fathers should start measuring ourselves by is presence over perfection. If we're there, we're doing everything that we can. We don't have to be perfect. We're showing up, and our kids are going to appreciate that. They're going to learn that that was a blessing that's going to make them want to show up in their children's lives whenever they have children going forward. The second way would be love over luxury. So you can buy kids anything whenever they're teenagers or, you know, an adult on their own. They're not going to remember everything that you bought them, but they're going to remember the way that you made them feel, right? If you showered them with love, that's what they're going to remember. You can buy them things all day, but if you're a crappy father or crappy parent, they're not going to be very happy at the end of the day. They would trade all of that stuff in just to feel loved, just to feel as though they're enough. So I think the second thing that we can measure ourselves on when it comes to being a good father is love over luxury. And the last thing is effort over ego. Be willing to apologize, be willing to grow, admit that you don't always have it figured out. I think that's a very powerful thing as a father. If you can learn to do that, if you can learn to apologize and not let your ego get the best of you, that is the biggest step that you as a father, as a man, can take. I know that this is something I personally have worked on so much over the last couple months, last year, year and a half. For a while, I was, you know, I'm the father, I'm the man. It's my way or the highway a lot of the times, and I'm ashamed to say that, but I'm here before you admitting that. But I have tried my best to be more apologetic, to grow internally, to show my kids, show my young men the type of man I want them to be. A lot of that was a lot of self help that I had to do internally. So if any of you are listening and you have your own ailments going on that you feel are holding you back from being a father, I want to ask that you please get help, that you please see a doctor, seek to make that better, because that's the first step in being the father that you think you're being all the time. Because I know for me, I thought I was being a great dad all the time, or at least for the most part. I thought I was making the right decisions, I should say. But when I started to address what I had going on, it made me realize I'm not always doing right. I'm not always in the right. I need to learn to talk less, listen more. I need to open up my heart. I need to drop the ego, lower the shield, and just be vulnerable. That's the main thing that I've learned, is to be vulnerable when it comes to my children. But here's the truth, guys. Being a good father, it's not about the highlight reel. It's about the day-to-day consistency, the silly car rides, the goodnight kisses, the bedtime stories, the times that you slow down and listen, the times where you say something goofy or act goofy just to get a smile out of them. That's the stuff that measures how good of a father that you are. And, sometimes there's the tough stuff too, right? Disciplining your kids. You'd rather avoid conflict, but sometimes as a parent, as a father, you have to take that stance. You have to discipline. It's about staying patient whenever you're exhausted, or admitting that you messed up when your pride wants to kick in. I tell my kids all the time, if I make a mistake, if I make the wrong choice, I say, I apologize. I did this out of anger. Maybe I didn't think it fully through. I did the first thing that came to my mind. I apologize. I will do better. That's become my slogan, essentially, is I will do better. And it's not just something I say, it's something I have to actively practice. If I do something that I don't like, that I don't agree with, no one's making me do it but me. Whatever I have going on inside, I can find anything in the world to blame it on. But if I don't like something I'm doing, I am the only one who can fix that. So I make it a point to tell my family, to tell my kids that I will do better. And the last thing I want to leave you guys with here is that fatherhood, it's not a performance, it's a relationship. And relationships, they don't get stronger because you keep score, right? But it's because you keep shooting. You keep shooting the ball. Doesn't matter what the score is, just keep shooting, keep trying, keep adding on to it. Just like your relationship with your partner. That's another thing that I want to point out is your partner. You have to have a good partnership. You have to. For your children to see what a good partnership looks like, so that they can go out and find that as well whenever they leave the nest and get out on their own. And it does take two. A lot of people do it on their own. To all of you single fathers, you are killing it. I want you to know that I'm proud of you. I want you to know that you had a very hard day today, and it's okay. It's okay to feel like you're not perfect. It's okay to make mistakes, because I know that tomorrow morning you're going to kiss those kids. You're going to tell them that you love them. You're going to make them feel like they're the only kids in the world, and that at the end of the day, all they need is you. I feel for any father who's doing it on their own, because I know myself, I don't know if I could do it on my own. So for those of you that are, kudos. I want to give you guys the biggest hug and the hugest pat on the back. So for those of you that are wondering how to measure being a good dad, here's my challenge. Stop measuring yourself against other dads. Instead, measure yourself against yesterday. Are you a little more patient? Did you connect a little deeper with your children? Did you show up, even if it was imperfect, even if you made mistakes? Did you show up? Did you put forth that effort when it comes to being a father? Because at the end of the day, that's the real scoreboard. And I want you guys to remember that our children don't need perfect dads. They need you. They need the understanding, the loving you, the real present you. That's what they need. Not perfection, just you being the best you that you can be. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out in the Dad Lounge with me today. If this episode gave you something to think about, please do let me know on social media. Let me know in the comments down below. If you're on YouTube, if you know a father who needs to hear this, feel free to tell them, or, send them the podcast. Let them listen to it. Try to get more people on here. Try to get some questions that we can answer, just some talking points in general. Try to get some of you guys on as guests. That would be phenomenal. I do have a couple of people that I want to get on here as guests, just about setting things up right, just about getting everything lined up together so that we can. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you all have had a great week. a great weekend. I hope that you're being a little easier on yourself, that you're being a little more understanding, and that you're learning to love yourself while you're learning to love the kids. Until next time, see ya.